and welcome back to Beyond the Headlines. I'm Nikita Arora. On 26th May this year, the BJP, better known as the Modi government, completes 4 years in power. 4 years ago, it was Modi's high-octane speeches, his tall promises, his humble beginnings that caused the massive wave the party still can't stop raving about. But politics thrives in the gap between the preached and the practiced. So this week we're asking if Modi talked the talk and walked the walk. We'll evaluate the government's performance on 11 key promises. The first, unemployment. In 2013, Modi blamed the UPA for dragging the country through 10 years of jobless growth and promised 1 crore jobs every year. In the last 4 years, the rate of unemployment has gone up from about 4.9% to 7.1%. Despite schemes like Skill India, Make in India, Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana and so on. So out of the job-seeking population in India today, a whopping 31 million people remain unemployed. So on the unemployment front, our verdict is that the BJP failed to keep its promise. Farmers. BJP's 2014 election manifesto promised farmers a minimum support price of 50% profit over the cost of their total produce. This wasn't implemented. The agriculture GDP growth has fallen from 3.8% during the first 4 years of UPA 2 to 1.9% during the Modi era. And one only has to look at the rate of farmer suicides to gauge the growing desperation among farmers. Our verdict? The Modi government failed farmers. Now inflation. Inflation is something that has a direct and immediate impact on people, especially the poorer sections of society, and that has fallen from 9.4% during UPA times to 6.6% in 2017. So Modi deserves credit on this front, but let's not forget that the fall in global crude prices also had a role to play. Nevertheless, thumbs up to the Modi government for curbing inflation. Black money. This was probably the loftiest promise of all. 15 lakh rupees in every citizen's bank account. What a lovely thought. And to think that it was going to come from the black money stashed away in Swiss banks. How noble, how tempting. This was the promise that the Modi government made when they came to power. However, so far, nothing. Our verdict, the Modi government failed to keep its promise on black money. Demonetization. The masterstroke, the clean sweep, the Modi government's flagship scheme to flush out black money was a complete failure. 15.28 lakh crore rupees out of the 15.44 lakh crore, that's 99% of the value of the demonetized currency, came back into the banking system within 8 months of demonetization. It was hasty, it was unplanned, and it was economically disastrous. It caused panic, it caused fear, it caused loss of businesses, loss of money, time, and even lives. And an additional 4,500 crore rupees was spent on printing new currency notes. So demonetization, probably the Modi government's biggest failure. Foreign relations. Now this is a beast of its own, but let's try to focus on a few key issues. For his swearing-in ceremony, Modi invited the heads of all the SAARC countries, which was momentous. He visited Nawaz Sharif in Pakistan on his birthday. Lots of hugs, lots of handshakes. He was also on a first-name basis with Barack. And he's become the most travelled Prime Minister in India's history, making more than 49 foreign trips in the first 3 years of power. But what if these optics achieved? The India-Pakistan political dialogue is frozen and ceasefire violations along the LOC have escalated. India-China relations have hit the lowest point because of the Doklam military standoff. Our neighborhood diplomacy with countries like Nepal and Maldives has deteriorated, and China is building better relationships with them. For example, Maldives recently has leased an island to China for military use and also signed a free trade agreement with it. Russia, India's all-time ally, is drifting towards Pakistan, and in 2017 it conducted its first ever joint military drill with Pakistan. And Sushma Swaraj, the Foreign Affairs Minister, has been completely sidelined and she's been reduced to a minister on Twitter. So foreign diplomacy has become more about Modi himself rather than the country. So our verdict, Great optics, but not enough action. Thumbs down for the Modi government. Secularism. Growing up, we learnt that India was the land of unity and diversity, that it took pride in the different religions that could live harmoniously and peacefully together. But the truth is that the BJP has never been able to escape the RSS ideological hold on it. And that means that history would be rewritten, that science would be distorted, that children would be taught that Maharana Pratap actually defeated Emperor Akbar in the Battle of Haldighati 450 years ago, even though there is evidence to suggest the opposite, to show that he had actually fled the battlefield. Prime Minister Modi himself will assert on more than one occasion that Lord Ganesha was one of the first ever examples of plastic surgery, or that Karna was an example of genetic engineering. The Rajasthan Education Minister will come out and say that cows are scientifically significant because they can both inhale and exhale oxygen. And what has happened to our vocabulary? Ghar Vapsi, Gau Raksha, Love Jihad. These words were never part of our discourse, but today they are. Someone who consumes beef today has to fear for their life that they can actually be lynched in broad daylight. And it was never easy, but it's become so much more scary to be in an interfaith relationship. Our verdict? The Modi government has completely failed to protect India's secular fabric. Swachh Bharat. Now this is quite extensive, so let's just focus on the attempt to make India open defecation free. Over 7 crore individual toilets and 3 lakh public toilets have been constructed, and more than 2,160 cities have been made open defecation free. But the reality on the ground is quite disappointing because a lot of the people in the villages that have been made open defecation free cannot use the toilets because there is a lack of adequate water supply. So it's work half done. And there are other challenges, like manual scavenging still exists. And we cannot call ourselves a progressive country if we forever isolate a whole section of society to this cycle of poverty and inferiority. So obviously the sole burden of manual scavenging cannot and does not lie with Modi, but it is still something that we need to account for. So our verdict is that it is still work in progress, and let's wait and see how it pans out. Namami Gange, Modi's Ganga Conservation project. Now 20,000 crore rupees was allocated for this, and the CAG has pointed out planning and fiscal lapses and delayed and missed milestones. 75% of the fund remains unutilized, and no one knows what has happened with the remaining 25% because there appears to be zero progress on the ground. The water is still just as murky, and there is human waste, industrial waste and untreated sewage entering the holy Ganga. So on the Ganga rejuvenation front, our verdict is that the BJP has failed to keep its promise. Women's safety. Over the last 3 years, the Nirbhaya fund has accumulated 3,100 crore rupees, and less than 30% of this has been allocated. A minuscule portion of this allocation has actually been utilized by the ministries. So important initiatives like one-stop centers for rape victims, a women's helpline and the railway's emergency response system all remain stalled. And the recent handling of rape cases in Unnao and Kathua by the BJP have highlighted its irresponsible and insensitive attitude towards women's issues. I've discussed it at length in another video and you can watch it to find out more. But in the meantime, our verdict on the women's safety front is that the BJP has failed to keep its promise. We haven't discussed Aadhaar card, corruption, interference with the judiciary, law and order, environment, GST, Kashmir or neo-nationalism. So far, the Modi government hasn't scored very well on our report card, but it still enjoys an approval rating of 57%. What really matters is that we hear the message in the noise, that we see the intent behind the facade, and that we speak our mind, not just through tweets and posts, but also votes.